Previously on Gia's journey, Gia was born on March 19th, 2024. After a tough labor, she finally rested in her mother's arms while our family celebrated over FaceTime. 2 days later, we returned to the hospital for a checkup. Gia's jaundice levels were too high, and she had to be admitted for light therapy. Breast milk was the best treatment, so we had some delivered, only to find out it was left with security instead of reaching the nurses. A frustrating miscommunication. After 2 days of treatment, the jaundice improved, but it wasn't completely gone. To monitor her health closely, we downloaded and tested multiple baby tracking apps, choosing one to record her daily milk intake, sleep, and diaper changes.
You gonna freeze breast milk?
The last night.
Why?
I have too many milk. She's drinking 100 milli per every 3 hours. But I have too many milk.
Sell it. What do people do with excess breast milk?
Fight cancer. House Andy.
The TV show Dr. House?
Yeah. He had cancer and
What guy? The patient?
The patient. For believing a TV series.
What's that?
It's a bag to keep the milk.
You gonna store the milk in there?
What you gonna do? You don't have enough bottle.
Did you know that it's also known as April Fool's Day?
Yeah, which I don't care.
Do you have that in Vietnam? What do people do on April Fool's Day in Vietnam?
They post on Facebook that they married, whatever, have a baby, they engaged, whatever.
Then we should post that we're selling breast milk.
If you think that's cool, that's a good line.
Wow, it's almost full.
210.
210 milliliter? You pumped it out in how long?
30 minutes.
30 minutes? Wow, you can make 200 milliliter in 30 minutes? You're an ultimate milk machine. Should we start with milk manufacturing? Breast milk manufacturing?
And then my boob's gonna get saggy, like super saggy.
What's that on your shirt?
Something. I always have something in my shirt and stuff after I have the baby. So.
The nights were broken into shifts. Every few hours, Gia needed to be fed. My wife and I took turns during the midnight hours, keeping her on a schedule. She seemed to like routines. We used the Medela pump to collect breast milk, which helped relieve Ada's pain. Then, we stored it and later heated it with the Tommy Tippy bottle warmer. I handled the feeding while Ada tried to rest, but pumping never really let her get a full break. She was always exhausted. At some point, we realized our entire freezer was packed with breast milk. There was no space left for anything else. We had to change our eating habits. No more frozen food, just to make sure there was room for Gia's supply. Although we didn't stick to it long term, we figured out the best approach. Ada focused on getting the right baby gear and equipment, while I handled cleaning and sanitizing. We used a UV sterilizer. It's better to get one with a large capacity to make things easier. For bottles, we tested 5 different major brands. I was curious about the differences, but Ada preferred to stick with Dr. Brown's bottles because they helped reduce choking while Gia drank. As days passed, things felt more predictable. Feed, pump, store, clean, repeat. Gia rarely cried, which made things easier, but exhaustion still built up. And then, postpartum care became part of our daily routine. Newborns often squirm in their sleep, especially when swaddled. It's natural. Some babies fight to get their arms free, a reflex called the Moro reflex. They're not trying to escape. Their nervous system is still developing. Some parents keep their arms tucked in tight, but we found that leaving one arm out sometimes helped Gia settle down. Sleep wasn't just about keeping her fed. We also had to make sure the environment was right. Bright lights kept her alert, so we kept the room dim. Any sudden noises could startle her, so we tried to keep things quiet. White noise helped, though. It mimicked the sounds of the womb and made it easier for her to drift off. Choosing the right baby bottle was just as important as feeding her on time. Some bottles caused too much air intake, making babies gassy and uncomfortable. Dr. Brown's bottles had a vent system that helped prevent that, which is why Ada preferred them. Even with the right bottle, burping was just as important as feeding. If she swallowed too much air, she'd be fussy and uncomfortable. We learned to burp her after every feed, sometimes in the middle of a feeding session, by holding her upright and gently patting her back. It wasn't always instant. Sometimes it took a minute, sometimes longer, but when we got a good burp out of her, she slept much better. Newborn sleep is unpredictable. Sometimes Gia would drift off peacefully. Other times she'd squirm and flail, as if trying to break free. It wasn't just random movement. Babies have something called the Moro reflex. It's an instinctive reaction, a little leftover from life in the womb. That's why swaddling can help, but not all babies like it. Gia preferred having at least one arm free, so we adjusted. Even when she was still, we noticed something strange. Sometimes she slept with her eyes slightly open. It was eerie at first, but we learned that it's actually normal. Babies' sleep cycles are immature, and their eyes might flutter or stay cracked open. It wasn't something to worry about. At night, we kept things dark and quiet. Babies are sensitive to bright lights, and keeping the room dim helped her settle down faster. Sudden noises startled her, so we kept our voices low, but white noise worked wonders. The constant soft sound reminded her of the womb, making it easier for her to fall asleep and stay asleep. A lot of people use pacifiers to help babies soothe themselves, but we never did. Our doctor advised against it. He said pacifiers could interfere with breastfeeding and create long-term dependency. So instead, we tried other ways to keep Gia calm, holding her, rocking her gently, and making sure she was full before sleep. We were also cautious about the environment around her. In the first month, our cat wasn't allowed on the bed. If she even tried, we immediately used a sticky roller to remove any fur. We were already checking everything, diapers, milk intakes, and sleep time, so keeping the bed fur-free was just another thing on our list. And when Gia was awake, we made sure she was active. Tummy time became part of our daily routine. It's essential for a baby's neck and back strength. Most guides recommend just a few minutes at a time, but Gia seemed to enjoy it, so we pushed a little more. We'd place her on her stomach and watch as she struggled to lift her head. Every tiny effort was a step forward. To help with her development, we also used a book with black and white abstract drawings. At this stage, newborns don't see color well, just high contrast shades like black, white, and gray. The book was designed to stimulate her brain and improve her visual focus. Sometimes we used simple shapes, sometimes images of fruits, but she seemed fascinated by them. Feeding her was just as important as keeping her active. We spent a lot of time testing bottles, making sure she didn't choke while drinking milk. Some bottles let in too much air, causing gas and discomfort. That's why we stuck with Dr. Brown's bottles, their vent system helped reduce air bubbles. But even with the right bottle, burping was a must. If she swallowed too much air, she'd be fussy and uncomfortable. We made sure to burp her after every feeding session, sometimes even in the middle of one. Holding her upright and gently patting her back, we waited for that little burp. It wasn't always instant, but once it happened, she was much more relaxed. Everything was a cycle: feeding, burping, tummy time, sleep. And we kept adjusting, figuring out what worked best for Gia as she grew, day by day.